it's Tuesday morning. Let's go out here and check in on Sean, see what kind of progress he's made on the CTS-V and see what our plans are for today.
Morning!
What's going on, Sean?
Making that mess.
Looks like it, man. Good deal.
Still hot, man.
How are we coming this morning?
Pretty good. Probably got about another hour or so and I'll have the motor yanked out of it.
Okay.
So.
Alright, so we'll get the engine out of it, roll that into the engine room, disassemble to a bare short block, get all the parts organized, and start going inside the engine today. Hopefully get it transformed semi back into a long block with some aftermarket parts.
It's a lofty goal, but I'd really like to have the motor back in the car today.
My man.
So we'll see how it goes.
We'll check in with you in a little bit, man.
Go. Well, yesterday we got off to a little bit of a late start, so only got to work on it for about 2 hours. So today, I'm gonna try to make up that time, and hopefully I can have this thing with a new cam in it, new heads on it, everything ready to go, and have this thing sitting back in the car by the end of the day. So, cross my fingers.
All right, so what is it, Sean? An hour later?
Oh yeah, you
About
got
an hour. What do you got in this thing so far? 3 hours?
3 hours, 15 minutes.
3 hours, 15 minutes. We got a bare long block out of a Cadillac sitting in our engine room. And I guess you're gonna roll through the disassembly process, get everything inspected, make sure it looks good. I'll take a few minutes, go ahead and grab all the new parts, bring them in here, set them up so we have them. And then I guess the best thing to do is, as we're reassembling, we can compare the old parts to the new parts, get a little bit more in depth about what each part does, how it's gonna benefit the combination, and roll through it from there.
Sounds good.
Cool, let's get to work.
All right, so as you can see, we have moved into the engine room where from this point on, everything really needs to be like doctor clean. So in here it's AC, there's no dust flying around from the shop, so this is where all the engine stuff goes down. So what we're gonna do basically is strip this to a short block. Gonna pull off all the valve train stuff, heads, oil pan, front cover, and from there we can swap out the cam and start putting new stuff on.
This is a traditional LS-LT hydraulic lifter. This is a displacement on demand lifter from GM, again for LS-LT. You'll notice the biggest difference is there's a giant spring on here that when these cylinders are deactivated, this spring keeps the lifter from jumping around in the lifter bore and maintains a constant pressure like it should when it's actually firing on all 8 cylinders. This spring is known to fail. This entire lifter assembly will fail. The lifter will bounce up and down and you can create flat spots on the roller, beat up the camshaft, things of that nature. So we're gonna get rid of these guys. We're gonna update to the Johnson hydraulic lifters. We're gonna do new lifter trays, and then we're installing the late model engine DOD plugs to restrict that oil flow through the block and keep it where it needs to be. It looks a little crude with a hammer and some plugs, but it's a press fit plug with a little bit of Loctite, and then the valley plate itself will ensure that they don't move once it's installed. All right, so DOD has now been eliminated. I'm gonna take a wild guess here and say that you're gonna slide a camshaft in next. Cool. So this is our stage 1 LT4 camshaft. Again, we just deleted DOD. The other big thing that we're gonna delete is gonna be the VVT system from the vehicle. Basically, again, this is another oil controlled situation where oil pressure will actually, and based on what the ECU is being told to do, allows the camshaft to retard and advance based on engine RPM and the parameters that you've set forth to pick up some power and torque under the curve, extend it out, things of that nature. We've played with all the big name camshaft companies out there that offer VVT cams and tested with them, developed our own. We haven't seen the benefit to VVT on late model LS and LT engines. So we're going to eliminate all of these problems and stick with what works. In Sean's process of moving forward with buttoning up the front and bottom of the engine before we roll up top to cylinder heads and valve train, I just wanted to show you the basic differences here between the OEM LT4 front cover and LME's gorgeous billet CNC front cover. We have to utilize this because we got rid of the variable valve timing. If you look at the depth of this cam gear, the factory LT4 front cover has a giant provision for that cam gear to sit behind it. Obviously, getting rid of that and still utilizing the cam position sensor and keeping the proper range on that, we need the front cover redesigned to do such. Sean is going to come over and basically remove the items needed to go on the LME front cover. We'll get that installed, we'll get the oil pan installed, and then start working our way up from the top there. Alright, cool. So now that the oil pan and the front cover is on, Sean's going to start working his way up top, and what you're seeing here is the fuel pump lifter, essentially. You could call this an actuator, what have you. But this is the lifter that's going to ride on that 32% increased fuel pump lobe on our CamMotion camshaft that we talked about. And then the top here will have a spring and connect to the LT4 fuel pump, and this is where we'll get our mechanical drive from. This bolts in the rear valley right here, down on that fuel pump lobe that we showed you earlier. Just like that. So the next part of the equation will be to bolt on our late model engines CNC'd cylinder heads. We have fully CNC'd intake runners, exhaust runners, valve job, chambers are fully worked, and then we have a single piece stainless exhaust valve. The factory again comes with a two-piece valve that's fusion welded, and it's prone to failure, especially in high temperature, high cylinder pressure situations like a forced induction application. Topped off with a set of Brian Tooley Racing 660 lift dual springs with titanium retainers. We're going to bolt these on, torque the heads with ARP head bolts provided by Skaganicki Parts Center. The ARP head bolt is going to provide a much stronger clamp on this cylinder head. Again, with added boost, we want to keep the heads bolted to the block. We don't want any issues of failure or cross-contamination between cylinders. So the ARP fasteners are going to do a great job at that.
So the Johnson lifters we're using, they have a specification as to how much preload they actually need on them, and that spec is 35 thousandths plus or minus 10 thousandths. So we're at zero lash right here, meaning it's touching both the push rod and the tip of the valve with no vertical movement. So what I'm going to do is tighten this bolt up to where it'll be all the way tight, and you'll be able to see in thousandths how far it's preloading the lifter. Cam installed, new heads, valve train upgrades, everything's ready to rock. Just got to press on the damper and put the flex plate on it, and we'll have this thing stacked back in the car by the end of the day. I told you I'd get it done by the end of the day.
You come over here and get the forearm with all the veins popping.
Ooh. Hang on. Thanks.
Should have let me do this part of the build. There you go. It's 3:36 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. day essentially 1. I mean, it's Tuesday, but we started yesterday at about this time pulling the engine out. So engine out, engine disassembled, back in long block form with all the upgraded parts, and we're literally about to set it back in the engine bay now. I'll grab a hoist.
Thanks, sir.
We've had some issues with this in the past. I think we should put a $2 bet on this.
I'll go $2.